Okay. We all set?
Yep.
I was referring more to my fellow counselors. I heard recording in progress. I knew you were good. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the February 24th already Portsmouth Town Council meeting. We will be live streaming as normal. If you have a question, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. And to mute and unmute, you hit *6. If we could all please rise for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women in harm's way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. In the event of an emergency, we have 3 doors to exit. The one you came in this evening, one behind Mr. Reese, and one behind you folks in the back right-hand corner or your left-hand corner. If there is an emergency, please head over to the school department building and wait for further instructions from our emergency personnel. Madam Clerk, I'd like to do a roll call, please.
Mr. Gleason,
Here.
Ms. Blank,
Here.
Ms. McDowell,
Here.
Nope.
Here.
One more time.
light on.
Red off, green on.
Here.
Mr. Reese,
Here.
Ms. Patton,
Here.
Mr. Payera,
Here.
Mr. Hamilton.
Here. All right, we did not have any executive sessions before the meeting, so there's no executive summary other than to congratulate the girls' gymnastics team for a second place finish in the States this year. Very good job by the ladies. We have our consent agenda. We have a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we'll be sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. First up, we have a peddler's license for a mobile food establishment. It's new, a couple of them. Matthew E. Cowell, doing business as Meat Sweets R.I. LLC, 109 Breakhart Hill Road, West Greenwich, Rhode Island.
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have a mobile establishment for What's Up Cupcake LLC, 691 Main Street in Warren.
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And we have a victualer's license for Quidnick Opco LLC, doing business as Flo's Drive-In, 324 Park Avenue.
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Motion to adjourn as the Board of License Commissioners.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have minutes from the 1/27/25 meeting, the 2/3/25 meeting and executive prior to, and the 2/10/2025 meeting and the executive. Any questions on the minutes?
I need to abstain from the 2:10 one. Fine, no questions.
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0 on the 1/27/25, 7-0 on the 2/3/2025, and 6-0-1 on the 2/10/2025 with Ms. Blank abstaining. Town Administrator's Report, Mr. Rayner.
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. Governor Dan McKee and the Rhode Island Department of Education have offered Portsmouth a grant of at least $55,000 in support of the Math Matters initiative, which is part of the governor's Learns 365 RI program. This funding is to support out-of-school learning with a focus on mathematics for students primarily in K through 8th grade. All funds must be spent no later than September 2015. We'll be working with the school administration to participate in planning with RIDE to develop a proposal for a program this summer.
We're going to assume that's 25, right? Not 15.
What did I say?
Otherwise, we missed it.
What did I say? Oh, it's been a long day.
It must be.
Regarding the solicitor RFQ, we've updated the town's request for quotes for the town solicitor. Qualified attorneys now have until 4 p.m. on March 18th to submit written proposals to handle general legal matters relating to the operation of the town government. With regard to the high school roof, I'm sure everyone is aware now that multiple areas of the roof surface of the high school have failed. Extensive repairs have been made previously to punctures, tears, and other open conditions. However, failures are increasing rapidly as the freeze-thaw cycles accelerate deterioration of the roof's membrane. Recent inspections reveal the roof's waterproofing properties have failed. Serious leaks have created major disruptions to the building's interior during rain and snow events. Due to the extent of the issue, our school administration is pursuing an emergency declaration with the RIDE School Building Authority, and they have invited state-approved roofing companies to submit repair quotes. Quotes are expected in the next 2 weeks. Students are currently in class, and the administration will respond as necessary during rain and snow events until the roof is repaired. And then the town will celebrate annual Founder's Day on March 7th. This will be, there will be a display of the original Portsmouth Compact. The compact will be shown at the Friends Church located just across the street, kitty corner to the town hall, and that will be on March 7th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Friends Church is celebrating its 300th anniversary this year, and the Portsmouth Historical Society has asked for the viewing to be held there. There will be a short ceremony at 12 p.m. on that day. So on that day, the state archivist and a Portsmouth police escort will transport the compact from Providence, where it is housed, to the Friends Church for viewing on that day. So, Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Mr. President, I have a question for Mr. Rayner. On the PHS roof update, I just have a couple of questions just to satisfy myself. It's not really a weather event. I mean, there was no abnormal weather, and roofs fail over time. So who or what committee is in charge of the maintenance on this? I mean, roofs don't just go. I'd like to see some kind of report on what has happened over time on this, because this should have been being inspected and replaced prior to this. And if it was a priority, it should have been moved up in the queue, I think, of maintenance.
The superintendent's here, and he can answer your questions in more detail. It's my understanding that the roof has been monitored over the years, and it was scheduled to be in the next 5 year. We're at the end of the current 5-year CIP plan for the school system, and it was scheduled to be in the next 5-year capital improvement plan.
All right. Well, all right. Well, I'll ask him.
Sure.
I just have one question as far as that.
Mhm.
I mean, you have to go on the physical condition of the roof. I mean, I've got rental property and you're
Yeah.
looking at them all the time. And you can't say, well, I'm going to do this in 5 years, because you might have to do it in 1. Who's monitoring this? Like, there's people, you can walk up around a roof and see if it's going to get through the season or not.
Sure. So yeah, we have had regular inspections, Mr. Reese, and I mean, just wasn't an indication that it was at that point. It has happened, obviously, and we're
But
taking every
it's a
measure that we
membrane
can.
roof, right?
I'm sorry?
It's a membrane roof?
Yes,
rubber
I
roof.
believe, yep.
Well, they don't, that's pretty obvious when they go.
Yeah.
I mean, I just put one on and I know.
And I mean, the internal warning signs that I think are the, first things that we started to notice this year. I mean, they had not happened anywhere to the extent that they've happened.
What do you mean
this
the
year.
internal warning
Like
signs?
the leaking and things that we would notice
You
inside.
don't wait till it leaks.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, that's what,
I hate
That's
putting
what-
ceilings in
yeah.
and doing sheetrock. I don't know
yeah.
about you,
And,
but
and, as we started to address it, it's really been after the holiday break. It's just.
now, is this one person that's inspecting this, a company or something the school does?
I think a combination of all of the above. And as Mr. Rayner said, I think this, we're finishing up our current 5-year capital plan. This would have been on the list for the
But
next
it's cheaper
capital
to put a
plan.
roof on than it is to do the roof and all the repair work inside. I mean, that's
Mhm.
usually what you look at.
Right.
Maybe you ought to look at your maintenance policies
Yeah.
and the inspection policy.
I think we'll be taking a look at a lot of things.
All right.
All right.
Any other questions for Mr. Rayner or Dr. Kenworthy? Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming over. Next up, we have resignations and appointments. We have a reappointment for Miss Nancy Zitka to the Board of Canvassers.
Excuse me. Mr. President, I would like to make a motion, to table all the resignations and appointments due to the, recent advertisement in the paper. There were multiple committees put into the paper and the Board of Canvassers and the Planning Board was omitted from there. So I just wanted to see if we could table these to be fair to everyone and.
The Board of Canvassers appointment is an appointment based on the Democratic Town Committee and the Republican Town Committee.
I understand that. I believe her time is up in March. And the Republican committee wasn't aware.
The Republican Committee doesn't appoint the Democratic Committee person.
So it's not open, so no one else can put an
If it-
application in?
If it's for specifically the position that's within the Democrat Party, the Democrats put forth a person. So unless the Democratic Town Committee is going to put somebody else up outside of Ms. Zitka,
Okay.
that wouldn't matter. And the
That
Planning
is-
Board is a reappointment of Mr. Harding if we wanted to.
Okay. All right, that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
I
But-
thought anybody can put their application in.
Our canvasser will let us know.
I just want to clarify. When there is a vacancy in the canvassing office, and this has been since I've been here that I've noted, when someone seeks reappointment as a courtesy, they are given the opportunity to do so. If they choose not to, at that point, then both parties are notified. That would mean that Tom and Ken would be notified and asked to submit 5 names. But it's up for you to decide whether or not you are. Everything is governed. If you want to look it up, it is, it's in our town charter under
Yeah, I
Article
have it.
4, and it's in the general elections in Title 17, Chapter 8.
No, I have that. Thank you.
And as far as tabling the appointment for the Board of Canvassers, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we would respectfully request that you do seek the timely appointments for this critical board.
Thank you. I do understand that. I did also get an email for another applicant, so, that was the other.
These are not
Another-
there are no applications that are filled out for both these positions and the planning board because these are boards that make decisions. Their role is critical. And that's why they are nominated by the party chairs and by the town council if the party chair does not have any names available to them.
Okay, thank you.
Can I expand on that? So am I hearing you correctly, that if we had people, it would, us as a council, we would talk to our leads and put a name forward? Is
Yes.
that the correct?
What would
forward?
happen is the town clerk would send a letter to all of the party chairs requesting for every one vacant seat, they are going to be requested to provide 5 names. So for example, if you were requesting a alternate as well as a board member, then they would have to submit 5 names. From those names, your council would nominate or actually the president of the council would nominate one of those names, and then you would vote on it, and you would have this conversation throughout the night.
Thank you for the clarity.
President, can I make a motion that we approve the reappointments, just so we can kind of get tonight going?
Well, we'll do one at a time.
Okay.
First, We'd have to have, first up is the Board of Canvassers reappointment for Ms. Sitka.
I will move to reappoint Ms. Sitka.
Is there a second?
Second,
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have a reappointment for Mr. Harding to the Planning Board.
Motion to approve Mr. Harding to the planning board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next two are for Mr. Fitzgerald for both be on the Tree Commission and as the Tree Warden.
Motion to approve Mr. Fitzgerald to the tree commission and to the tree warden position.
Second.
All those in favor?
can I just have a question?
Sure.
Is there any conflict of interest or concern having the same person in that same role?
Different roles. But the Tree Warden is,
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's
having it
part,
be the
he's
same.
part of the commission, but he's also the Tree Warden.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no conflict of interest. Okay,
No.
thank you for the clarification.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have Parks and Recreation, and we have 4 qualified candidates and only 3 openings, Madam Clerk, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just in piggybacking on the motion or the words that were spoken by Charlene regarding the advertisement in the paper. I think you said that it came out on Thursday. And so these are new appointments, correct? 3 vacancies in 1, yeah. These are new appointments. Isn't it fair to just hold these off until that Thursday publication is seen by all?
Well, the Thursday publication was after this agenda was posted.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm just,
Was,
It was the first time it was posted in
I'm
the
just
paper.
saying, it.
But it's
seems-
been posted on the website, it's been posted on the doors. We keep advertising. We just put in another ad because we hadn't had anybody apply. So,
so that the timing of the advertisement was last week, 2 weeks ago,
correct,
for last week's paper,
correct,
but you had people apply for this agenda and
correct,
you put them on this agenda.
correct.
I would ask the chair if of the Recreation Committee, if he could handle waiting 2 weeks until we have our next meeting, if you don't mind, Mr. Fiorillo. Just because you're here. Thank you, sir.
Hello, David Fiorillo, 45 Hamilton Drive. We've been woefully understaffed on our committee for a very, very long time. And I am very happy that we have 4 qualified candidates to take up these spots. We have had to postpone 2 votes in the past 2 meetings because we have not met our quorum. So I would like to see this passed today if possible, so I can set our agenda for our next meeting.
When is your next meeting?
Tentatively, it would be March 20th. Hold on.
So our next meeting would be the 10th, if you wanted to hold off and see if we got any other applicants.
I mean, I know of 3 applicants that came in to me personally last week.
Okay.
So, I
And
mean,
they're not 3 of the people that are on this list.
what's that?
They're not 3 of the people on the list right now.
I believe 3 of them are, yes, that were sent to me. So I would like to get this handled ASAP if my vote, please. Thank you.
David, can I ask a clarifying question? Do you mean the 3 people who did ask, are they included here or?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah. I
So
think
no
they
one-
were sent to Wendy Bulk
no
and
one's been
Wendy forward.
excluded.
No,
Okay,
no.
thank you.
Thank you.
What is the council's pleasure? We have 3 openings and 4 individuals. We have.
Are any of them here?
I don't know. We have Mr. Kitzmiller. Miss Rutledge Cotter. And. Oops. I
Mr.
went too
Adam,
far. Mr. Adams and. Miss Dubay. We'll go with Dubay.
So none of them are here.
Does not look that way. But in the interest of the chair's request to get this moving. Well, I'm not going to sit here all night, so somebody can either make a motion to
So-
approve people or make a motion.
I'll
to
make a
table it.
motion that we table the appointments for Park and Rec, since their meeting is not until the third Thursday. And we can, do it on the 10th, see if we get other applicants.
Okay.
Um,
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-2. We will do these on the 10th. Next up, we have 2 appointments for the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee, and we have 8 vacancies. So even if we appoint these 2, there's still 6 other people that can apply for that one. So do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to accept Cynthia Berg and Mr. Kaiser.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Just a quick question, note, piggybacking on what Charlene had stated. If possible for the next meeting to have those applicants, if they're interested, I'd love to come and meet either beforehand, or to come speak in the meeting.
Great idea.
Next up, we have old business. Discussion and requests to move a nonpartisan election forward in the best way that makes sense for our community. Ms. McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. President. In January, we learned from several citizens, or we heard from several citizens on how they felt about the issue of nonpartisan elections. While it is my opinion that many Portsmouth voters would like to see nonpartisan elections as part of our landscape, I did also hear that there is a reluctance to put this issue on the ballot of a special election because of cost and voter turnout. While I believe that the benefits of nonpartisan elections, which would be increasing the candidate pool of very qualified individuals who presently are prohibited from running due to the Hatch Act, forcing us also to look at policy decisions over party, and also on the local level, act as somewhat of a unifier. I believe it is well worth the cost of a special election. While I would love to see nonpartisan elections in 2026, there is a concern from citizens as well as my colleagues on the council about the financial cost. Taking these factors into consideration, I am making a motion tonight that I hope will garner enough support to move forward on nonpartisan elections. I'd like to make the motion. I move that we place a question on the ballot at the next election, whether it be a special or general, whichever comes first, to change our town council and school committee elections to nonpartisan.
Second.
Any discussion from counselors?
Am am I understanding correctly that you are not asking for the nonpartisanship itself to go on? You're asking for the vote, the opinion of the public to be put on the next
Well,
election?
I'm making the motion
Yeah.
to have it for the first election, whether it be a special or a general. Yes, yep.
For the question to change the charter to that all elections going forward after that would be nonpartisan. So if the next election would be 2026, if we don't have a special election before then, it would go on then, and then the 28 elections would be nonpartisan.
For
If-
both school committee and
if
town
passed,
council?
If passed. Yes,
Am I hearing, okay.
both town council and school committee. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Katzman, first up.
Mr. President, members of the council, I'm Len Katzman. I'm the chair of the Portsmouth Democratic Town Committee. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Council Member McDowell, you mentioned that you support this idea because of the benefits it would bring. I'd like to know what you think those benefits are. You mentioned increasing the voter pool.
Right.
But if you could elaborate on that?
Yes, I think the Hatch Act prohibits a lot of qualified people to run for office. And I think, given our location on the island, as well as Newport and Middletown, Tiverton, they also see the benefit to something like that as well.
Any other benefits?
Yep, the benefit of, I believe it's a unifier. I believe also that sometimes, as we see, sometimes I think we vote party rather than politics. Not maybe this council, because I haven't been here long enough, but I have seen in the past, I think we see it nationally, that happens.
If I may interrupt, we're not talking about people on the council. We're talking about the voters
Right.
of Portsmouth who may or may not choose to never vote for a Republican or never vote for a Democrat. That's their right. It is the right of the voters to vote however they choose. Once elected, it is, I believe, the obligation of every seated council member to act in the best interest of the entire community and not vote whatever may be perceived as party line. Having served for several terms over the past 15, 20 years, I can tell you my experience is that most of the time, council members vote their conscience. If people think that council members are voting according to some party edict, they're dreaming that up. I'm the chair of the party. I don't give edicts. In fact, I have expressly told people, vote your conscience. Happy to support you when you run for office. Once you serve, we don't tell you what to do. I can't speak for what the Republicans do, but I can tell you, over the course of history that I've been involved here, certain individuals like former Council President Marianne Edwards was a Republican. She changed parties because the Republican Party at that time, again, this is over a decade ago, told her how to vote. And she said, I am not being a part of a party that does that. The Hatch Act may still be relevant, by the way. There is instruction that if local parties endorse a slate of candidates, that may implicate the Hatch Act in and of itself. So we would be running into a conundrum where you would have to somehow draft a charter change that forbids the free speech exercise of your local parties. I think that would end up in court, and court cases on this point have lost. Parties are allowed to speak, just as people are, and allegedly now under Citizens United companies. But here's the issue. Last time you mentioned you felt slighted about how you felt treated at a party event that I ran. I apologized for that, but here's the point. That could happen whether we have nonpartisan elections or not. Whether a person's name on a ballot has an R or a D or an I after it would not be changed by how you got treated or not. That doesn't affect anything. And that you say there would be more people who would run for office. The evidence does not support that. Our neighboring communities have gone to nonpartisan elections. The Portsmouth Town Council, I'm proud of Portsmouth for voting regularly for Republicans and for Democrats and for independents. People of all parties and no party get elected to town council all the time. So it's not, there is no evidence locally that getting rid of partisan identifiers at the ballot would increase in any appreciable way candidate pool. And I want to address the point of what your agenda item is, which is to deal with this issue in, quote, the best way that makes sense for our community. Portsmouth is filled with very smart and dedicated people who are willing to spend time to discuss the pros and cons, bring in subject matter experts, do their research. Voting tonight because you have a gut feeling about something is not that. It is not research. It is not discussion. it's based on your gut feel, which I don't want to denigrate. I'm fortunate to have access to library search features that I can search for research articles, peer-reviewed journal articles in political science and economics and other sciences that are relevant. Mr. President, you may remember I spoke on these lines a decade or more ago and started reading from a stack of papers, peer-reviewed journal articles, people who have done research, people who have looked at election results and voter information to determine what happens when a community goes from nonpartisan to partisan or from partisan to nonpartisan. What happens? Do you know? The information is out there. There's a lot of it. And it's worthy of discussion. Wherever the community at large ends up deciding, it's worthy of discussion. And that is a discussion that simply has not been had. For example, in Political Research Quarterly, this is a 2025 article. The article is titled Crossover Voting in Nonpartisan and Partisan Elections, Evidence from Cast Votes. It's a 18-page paper discussing what their research methodology was, what information they looked at, and how they came to understand what's the dynamic, what do people do? And the results showed that many voters cast ballots in nonpartisan elections that they would not have otherwise done with more complete information in the ballot booth. Why are we hiding that information from the voters? I would suggest we shouldn't. Another article, this one is from 2018. Oh, darn, I've lost my place. This one is also from Political Research Quarterly, it's a different journal, Research Quarterly. And I can't find my highlights. There it is. Evidence suggests that a nonpartisan ballot produces governments that are less responsive to the concerns of the working class. This is a lengthy paper that discusses why that might be the case. Can you avoid that outcome if it's structured well? Maybe, maybe not. But without knowing what this information is, you're just saying, let's put it on the ballot. What you're really saying is, let's rip away from the voters the information that they are now used to seeing. You walk into a voting booth, you've done your homework or not, but whether you do your homework or not is the individual voter's choice. And they make their choice and they vote the ballot. And right now, information in the voting booth includes whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, or whether you're unaffiliated. I don't believe that ripping that information away from voters without any further research into what the consequences of that might be is not the best way that makes sense for our community. Portsmouth has, as I said, a long history of voting for Republicans and voting for Democrats and voting for independent, unaffiliated candidates. Our system is working. There's another paper. This one's titled Abstention and Informedness in Nonpartisan Elections. This is from a paper published in 2018 by that title. That experiments and research of the data revealed voter information acquisition. In other words, finding out about something out about the candidates. In nonpartisan elections, that voters are less responsive to increases in the cost of information. What that means is if it's harder to find out the information, voters stop looking. If it takes too much time, if it's more than one click away on your screen, people move on. So the idea that every voter is now going to have to go do their own homework, sure, they can, but do they? The evidence suggests that they don't. This is a paper published in 2023 in the journal Political Psychology, titled Projection in the Face of Centrism, Voter Inferences About Candidates' Party Affiliation in Low Information, in other words, Nonpartisan Contexts. And the results showed that even in the face of a self-declared centrist, voters from across the political spectrum tended to assume shared partisanship. In other words, if I like that candidate and I'm a Democrat, they must be a Democrat. Or if I like that candidate and they're a Democrat, and I'm a Democrat, they must be a Democrat. In other words, the voters get it wrong. Why? Because it's harder to find out that information. If you walk into the voting booth, don't you want voters to have all of the information needed? And again, I will reiterate, the Hatch Act may still bar people from voting if your local parties are endorsing slates of candidates. I don't know that the Republican Party will. I can assume they will, as they have in the past. I can tell you the Democratic Party in Portsmouth will always endorse a slate of candidates, at least so long as I'm here. To reiterate, or rather to emphasize, Mr. President, I'm mindful of people's time. I have 3 more journal articles I could quote from that are loaded into my reader, but what I have are 25 papers I could quote from, and those are the ones I found since last Thursday when this was posted on the agenda. There's a lot of information out there. If you truly are wanting to have the intelligent and dedicated, earnest voters of Portsmouth be able to move forward in the best way that makes sense for our community, I suggest what that means is sitting there while I read to you from 25 research articles,
That's not going to happen.
or I don't want that to happen either, Mr.
Thank you.
President.
We're on the same page on that one.
A standalone meeting, not part of a town council agenda where all these fine folks are here for other reasons and have to listen to me talk about this, where the sole topic is a charter amendment. The topic of that charter amendment, the way it might be phrased, the pros and cons of doing it. There is a name for a body that would do that kind of work. It's called a Charter Review Committee. It's in our charter. The charter calls for a new Charter Review Committee to be impaneled 2 years from now. Actually, probably I'd suggest 2 years from last month, but I don't know that just because we are required to have one every 8 years means that we can't have one sooner. I haven't looked into that or thought about it. You could empower, however, a Charter Review Committee, I believe, at any time. The next one would then be required 8 years thereafter. I would defer to the solicitor or others on that point. Nonetheless, Charter Review Committees that I've been a part of and that many other people have been a part of are populated by a wide cross-section, including people who are barred from running by Hatch Act considerations, including Republicans, including Democrats, and including unaffiliated independent voters who then spend a lot of time. Sometimes in the past Charter Review Committees, the decision was not close. No nonpartisan elections are not right for Portsmouth. They just aren't right for Portsmouth. Sometimes the decision of a Charter Review Committee was very close. The point is that simply among the 7 of you now deciding, we don't need to look at that information. We're just running on gut feel. It'll turn out more candidates. Well, the data shows it doesn't. I suggest that voting to put this on the ballot now without knowing any of this information, and I'll reiterate, Councilmember McDowell, at the last meeting, I offered to share with you all the information I have, enter into a robust discussion about it. That offer stands. Maybe when it's a little warmer out, so we can have coffee outside or something. But to move forward tonight on this without knowing anything about the impact one way or the other, maybe you'll like the impact, maybe you won't. You don't know because you don't know what the genuine impact is. You can look at Newport and Middletown. The results show that does not generate a lot of otherwise Hatch Act barred candidates. So that reason is false. It's not valid. There may be other bases or reasons that you like the idea, but liking the idea is different than having an evidence-based rationale for liking the idea. And I do not believe you can say in sincerity and honesty that you have a evidence-based rationale for moving forward to put this on the ballot tonight. Mr. President, thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Mr. Katzman. Mr. Fitzmaurice.
Thank you, Mr. President. Larry Fitzmaurice, 50 Kristen Court. I will be brief. The Portsmouth Concerned Citizens voted to support this proposal for a charter amendment presented to the people, let the people make a decision on this. And so I'm here to speak in favor of it. There are a couple of things that are pretty obvious to me. Number one, I've known 2 candidates that wanted to run for office in this town that could not run because they were employed in some fashion or another under federal dollars or with the federal government. That's a fact. So if we in this town continue to deny those people the right to run for office, we need to weigh that in the balance here as well, because that's an important thing. Now, in my judgment, all people that are qualified by age and the other qualifications in the Constitution should be allowed to run for office. We don't deny people in any other way in this country the right to run for office unless they're a felon. As long as they're a citizen, they get to run. I guess in Rhode Island, we can be a felon, can't we? Sorry. But that's an important factor. You know, we should have everybody in that wants to go in my judgment. They should be allowed to run for office. And this situation prevents that. And the surrounding communities have come to agreements on this and have changed their charters to provide for employees of the federal government to run here. And we should do the same. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Grebe.
Nancy Grebe, 110 Thayer Drive. 2 things. First of all, once again, Mr. Katzman spoke for well over 12 minutes. Mr. Katzman is the one who made the 3-minute rule.
Which was never followed, we're enforced.
Second of all, I was on the last Charter Review Committee. We discussed this. The first vote taken was close, but we voted to have nonpartisan, but not, and the council doesn't get this choice. Mr. Katzman hasn't said, the council just makes the choice for the people of Portsmouth to vote on this. This is what we want. We want to know what the people of Portsmouth wants. And that's all we're asking, is that you put it on a ballot so the people of Portsmouth can choose whether they want a nonpartisan or a partisan election, not what Mr. Katzman wants, what the people want. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grebe. The other Mr. Katzman, how are you?
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Mark J. Katzman, 78 Mail Coach Road. I'm not really addressing the council to debate whether or not having nonpartisan elections is a good idea or a bad idea, but I would like to speak on the process of making a change in the charter. Now, as I pointed out last time I spoke to the council on this matter, for what it's worth, I was secretary of the Charter Review Committee 6 years ago, and 6 years before, 8 years before that. So twice I've been involved with Charter Review. And let me just remind you of a couple of things about it, because it's in our charter that the council shall appoint a Charter Review Committee. It's also in there that the committee shall be appointed in January of the year prior to a general election. Now, why would that have been put in there? Because people go to the polls during a general election. It doesn't, you don't need to be a sociologist to study the data to see that special elections, very few people show up. So there's a reason that the committee is appointed at that time. Now, the committee according to the charter, is appointed by the council 7 or more qualified electors. And both last 2 occasions that a committee was formed, the council decided not even to set a number. The decision was kind of like, let's just see how many people apply, and if it turns into be a couple hundred, maybe we'll have to figure out a way to winnow it down. But the bottom line was, let's just see how many there are. And, I think there were, I forget the number, but it might have been 30. So the council said, fine, 30 people.
36.
Very good, thank you. So there were a lot of people there, and there was a lot of debate about this subject. I think it's important to remember that charters aren't, there's no burning urgency tonight that needs to be addressed with the charter change as soon as possible. I think that there's a reason why there's a process, why is there a charter review committee? This gives people the opportunity to express themselves freely. We don't want to have a big tent meeting to discuss it. An ad in the, I love the Portsmouth Times, but not everybody gets it and reads it. That's not democracy. When you have a general election, people know beforehand that the subject's going to be discussed. When there's a charter review committee, people are welcome to go to that committee. You don't have to be a member of the charter review committee to go to a meeting. And people did. People can show up and argue one way or the other. That's the way to take the public pulse. And with all due respect, Ms. McDowell, I know you said that you know a lot of people who think this would be good, but your knowing a lot of people who think it's good is not exactly a scientific survey of the community. So sure, the people you know agree with you, but I know a lot of people who don't agree. So, and again, I don't want to debate with you whether it's a good idea or not. I want to discuss the process. How do we best inform the public that this is a change, and I think the best way to do that is to leave it to the Charter Review Committee to address the issue. When that committee is done, they present their decisions to the council, which is then free at that point to either accept or reject any change or make up one of their own. So it's not like the Charter Review has a final say on any subject. But it certainly does give democracy a chance and for people to have the freedom to have an open discussion without any unnecessary time constraints or rush into the process. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Katzman. Mr. Katzman?
We have this joke among us. I call him, I say, Mr. Katzman? Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the council. I just want to address a couple of items that were referenced. Information. And just putting a charter amendment question on the ballot. Charter amendment questions on the ballot in Portsmouth historically pass. No matter what it is. Could be about providing restrictions so that land in the Glen can't be sold. It could be, there's been literally dozens of charter amendments that have passed in the last 15, 20 years. They tend to pass. Why is that? Because they're always a good idea. They tend to pass because if you ask people, they know it went through a process. The Charter Review Committee had to go through it and argue about it. It went before the council. The council discussed each and every one of those, the merits, the pros, and the cons. I've heard no discussion tonight other than, I like it, it's a good idea, it's a unifier. Let's talk about that. Is it a unifier? Would it be unifying? Why do you think it would be unifying based on what evidence? What community that had partisan elections and changed to nonpartisan elections, what evidence from those communities says it provided any unification or not? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know, do you? You may have a gut feel that, oh, it sounds better. That's not evidence. A speaker said, I know 2 people who were barred from running because they were barred by the Hatch Act. 2 people. An anecdote is something that I know a guy who said, or that person wears blue, or that's an anecdote. It's a story. It's something that's true that you found by talking to somebody who has a story. Here's a riddle. What's the plural of anecdote? Answer, it's not data. It's still just anecdotes. Data is a rigorous product, a product of rigorous research. And it's out there. It's not hard to get. There's papers that are very nuanced about the results of partisan versus nonpartisan elections. They're not all saying, oh, you should never do it. Some of them say you should. But why? Why is it better sometimes and not better other times? Unless you understand that, you are changing the fundamental fabric of this community. That's just not in the best way that makes sense for our community. Our community deserves fully vetted, fully discussed, proposed amendments. And by the way, what would the language of this? You're voting tonight to maybe put it on the ballot. What would the language of that be? What's the specific wording? You know there's many ways to do this. You don't know.
Len, we are at the 3-minute mark.
Thank you, Ms. Blank. And I will continue to ignore that just as I did when I sat in literally your seat, or maybe I was one over. I don't, and actually that's a really good point, Ms. Blank.
That you're over time?
It's only been what, a half hour we've talked about this, maybe a little less? A charter review committee would discuss this one odd item for maybe up to 2 hours, one meeting. They may have multiple meetings. And I can tell you, there's people in this room right now who probably be members of that committee and argue with me vehemently about it. That's the kind of discussion that it takes to provide to the voters of Portsmouth a vetted, clean, well-worded charter amendment. You don't have that tonight. You're voting instead to just, let's rip away information from the voters. I don't care what the circumstances or outcome will be. I don't want voters walking into a booth to know whether the candidates are Republicans or Democrats. That's just wrong. It's just wrong. I can hear people grumbling behind me. Here's the thing. If we were in a charter review committee meeting, we'd be more relaxed. We'd have plenty of time. Nobody would be grumbling because they'd be there enjoying the rigorous discussion we would have. But now, instead, we're taking up other people's time for issues that they are here for that have nothing to do with this because you want to put an unvetted, unthought through proposal to rip information away from the voters. I will say it again, it's wrong. Whether the town of Portsmouth eventually goes to nonpartisan elections or not, it should be done in a way that is well considered, well thought out, well researched, properly vetted and done. I think I've overstated the same point enough, Mr. President. I thank you for your time and indulgence. Am I up to 6 minutes yet? Thank you. That means
Thank
I
you,
got
Mr.
2 of them.
Katzman.
I know.
Mr. Clark.
Evening, Craig Clark, 701 Park Ave. I wasn't going to talk about this tonight, but I feel compelled to because I feel like it's not fair to the townspeople. I want to vote on that. I know this has been before the council before. There's 7 people deciding. There's a town review committee, deciding these things. The town should be able to decide this once and for all. And once that's happened, I will live peacefully. Thank you.
I'd speak again for 1 second.
One more quick
I
thing.
just want to say, I agree with this gentleman that the town people should decide. It's a question of process. It's not a question of whether or not the town
Oh,
people should.
I'll disagree with that because the last time there was a process.
Yes,
The Charter Review Commission came forward and this council killed it.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton.
So the process failed last time.
What do you mean?
When the nonpartisan elections came
Yes.
forward out of the Charter Review,
Yes,
the council, a democratically run council, decided not to put it forward to the.
Correct, correct. And if it was a Republican council, they could do the same kind of
They could
action.
have.
Regardless of what the Charter Review Committee recommends, because that's all it is a recommendation.
Correct.
It's still up to the council. And I just want to make the point that if it's going to be up to the people, it should be during a regular election, not some emergency scheduled special election, because there is absolutely no catastrophe befalling us that impels us
The-
to do this now tonight.
The motion is to put it on the next election.
Well, I'd be opposed to be putting it on a special election. If it's on the next regular scheduled election, I would have no argument with that, because that is the process that I am
We're-
saying should be
We're-
undertaken.
We're not planning on any special elections. There's no bond issues that I'm aware of that will be coming forth. So
Okay.
it would be the next, at this point, is the next regularly scheduled election.
In
which
2
would be in
years.
November,
Yes,
general election, not a primary. or
General
anything like that.
election,
It'd be a
yes.
general election. Right.
okay,
Yes.
Fine.
Okay,
okay,
in
thank you for
November
that
of
clarification.
2026.
Very good.
Mr. Gleason.
Are you okay with that misstatement, Council McDowell?
But it's,
You agree?
that's, well, that's our motion.
The next
That's what you want,
election,
right?
If
Okay.
if it comes to be
Yep.
a special election, which one never knows, if there is something that comes up prior to, then I would want it at that.
Great.
That was my,
Okay.
that's my goal here.
Thank you. I will be supporting this motion. I was on the 2 charter reviews ago. And, as long as we have Democrats and Republicans, there's going to be this kind of motion between groups of people. And I believe in that case, the action to get an independent, nonpartisan election forward, I didn't even get to the town council, with the type of infighting there was lots of conversation. And I would suspect that prior to this going on to the next agenda, people are going to know a lot of things about nonpartisan elections. It's going to be a big topic. Thank you.
Not next agenda, next election.
Next election.
Thank you.
Next
We're not putting
election.
this on the next agenda.
Mr. President.
Hang on, Mr. Payette, one quick second. I'm gonna let the
I
canvas.
just
speak.
wanted to clarify that the Charter Commission did do their job and the council did listen. It was presented, but as it was presented, it was that the school committee would be nonpartisan, but that the town council would still be partisan. And that was the reason for the rejection.
That's because
Yes,
they both came out and then the Charter Review Commission reviewed it again and decided to bring it back forward with just the school committee and not the town council.
okay, I'm sorry.
But, you're correct.
It
you're
was,
correct.
and that would have divided the town.
The original vote was for both.
Oh, okay.
And then it went back to the Charter Review when they had more people on it to flip flop it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that
Oh.
the charter committee gets their due diligence.
They- no.
Did what they did.
They went through a lot of items on that,
Nancy Zitka, 11 Schaefer Drive, on the Board of Canvassers. Thank you. Just a reminder, folks, special elections, in my opinion, are unfair to our voters. As you know, because we presented you the information at the last meeting that this was discussed, at best, 25% of our voters show up for
again,
special.
this is not a request to have a special election.
But
If another election, if another item were to come up,
yes,
whether it be state, federal, we weren't going to have a special election back in somebody help me, 21, 22? Which year did Cicilline quit? One?
Yeah, 22.
But Mr. Cicilline decided to quit a month
I am
after the
aware.
election.
we
So,
had just run another
yeah,
election right before
exactly.
that.
We got stuck with an election that we didn't have funding for.
Yeah.
I still
So-
think he should pay for that election, but that's just, it's just me. But thank you,
Thank you for hearing me.
Mr. Payero. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I kind of, I apologize. I'm not going to reiterate some of the points that Mr. Katzman has made, and I'm not going to differentiate which Mr. Katzman I'm going to talking about. Because I agree with both of them. The nonpartisan elections do not remove partisanship. It just eliminates the letter at the end of a name. And there are plenty of examples, and we can go both ways. But just so you guys know, to use two municipalities that are not in this state. One being the city of Atlanta, moved to a nonpartisan election. Sometimes they had Republicans that would run, they would get onto the council. Once nonpartisan elections happen, congratulations, the Democratic Party took over and has every single seat on the council and has held the mayoralship in that city with a strong hold. And in turn, has allowed for Georgia to be in play on the presidential level. Do I think Portsmouth will have that? No, but I also do not think that we have this burning building that's going to magically be saved by nonpartisan elections. Another one is New York City. And I say that just because I worked on this campaign. It was done because a minority party, i.e. the Republican Party, had a candidate that they ran for mayor who was not a Republican. For those that don't know, that was Michael Bloomberg. And his way of doing nonpartisan elections allowed for him to circumvent the party system and at the same time, the campaign funding mechanism that the city had established. I'm not saying that we have these things, but these things that we're doing it, that we do have consequences to them. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen or it should happen, but, and I'm not putting process aside, but there's not a magical kumbaya moment that happens the moment we get rid of partisan elections. It could either shift power one way where it consolidates, or you could have nefarious players that decide that they want to come into the system, and will then circumvent the will of the people.
Ms. Blank.
Thank you very much. I always want to hear from the citizens. That is why I ran. When this had first initially been put on the agenda, was it 2 weeks? Prior,
27.
when it was priorly put on the agenda, this is not how I would decide, but I did ask the public on Facebook, hey, what do you guys think? I could see the pros and the cons on this, and I'm here just to represent you. My whole job is to represent you guys. And it was overwhelmingly towards they wanted to keep it as it is now, which I was surprised by. And then as well as the comments and such. And granted, not everyone's on Facebook. It was not a full, I'm not saying this is a true data point. I'm just saying scientifically, I'm just saying this was a very good question. I want to hear from the people. When I had asked prior when it was on, that was the response I got. I do feel ownership that we do need as a council to learn more about the impacts that this would have, both pro and con, to be able to properly communicate that to the citizens. I don't want to be in another situation where we've done something and then there's this domino effect of results that we had not fully thought out. So I appreciate I would appreciate the opportunity to table it for now and learn more in a session, both of the pros, the cons, how this would affect certain things, and possible ramifications that have not been fully thought out. And in that, I do want to hear from the citizens and what they would like. Personally, I had wanted the school committee to be nonpartisan. I feel like that's a really great area. And I recognize the difficulty in making that delineation between school committee and town council. But we have a lot of fantastic people who work in this town that are prohibited from working by the Hatch Act. And especially in the school system, it would be great to have one of those parents be able to come in and help during that term. But I also see and hear and recognize the importance that some people want to see it on the ballot. With one of the statements being, well, how will I know unless there's a DNR? The way democracy works is by citizens being involved. You don't just pick by the party, you learn about each of the candidates. So regardless of this, if this does happen or doesn't, I always want the citizens to learn about each and every candidate and make the best choice for our town, because that's what's important. So I will be making a motion to table this so that we can have a learning session after all comments are collected.
Mr. Johnson? I'm assuming you're talking nonpartisan.
As a proud unaffiliated voter residing at 44 Wapping Road, Steve Johnson. I wanted to directly address the motion on the floor, which was, as I understood it, to place on the next election, whether it be special or general, this question that Councilor McDowell has introduced. I look forward to working with you on that question because that is something that has been intriguing me even before you introduced it. It's a very interesting concept that I'm interested in. I do think that tabling it might be something for the council to consider, but if the council wishes to go forward, what I have heard from a couple of you and several in the audience is that one of you might want to consider the possibility of a friendly amendment to the main motion, that if you were to move forward tonight, rather than tabling it, that it be on the next general election, not on a special election, because of the paucity of turnout, 12%, 14%, never as much even as 25%, so that we truly can see what our citizens are interested in. So if you don't vote to table, I would wonder if one of you were interested in offering a friendly amendment to the motion, not the next election, but rather the next general election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Okay, I think we've beat this to death enough. I would, and I've had this discussion with Ms. McDowell, so it's not a surprise to her. I would prefer to have it on the general election as well. But the motion on the table at this point in time is to have it at the next, if a special election comes forward or the next general election. It would not be during any of the primaries, because that would not be fair. So you would like to make a motion to table?
You read my mind.
Wow.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to table this so that we can have a learning session open for town councilors and the public, those with more knowledge to come and help educate. I want to learn more about this and be able to properly communicate what the impacts and ramifications could be and what the possible positive notes could be. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Hearing none, the motion-
Nobody
the
wants to
amendment
learn
fails.
more?
I think the mere fact that something is on the ballot, I mean, we will all do our due diligence in talking with people, educating people. That's what people do when things get on the ballot, whether it be a candidate or a bond or anything. There is a community that wants to know information, and they will get that information, both the pros and the cons, because that's what happens when things get on the ballot.
I truly feel we need to learn more as a council prior to putting this to vote. I genuinely feel that is in the best interest for our citizens.
And we're leaving the motion as is, okay? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. And again, my only opposed, I would just want to have it on the general election, not if there's something else that comes up. So I am in favor of nonpartisan elections going forward, so motion passes 4-3. Now we move on to new business number 1, which is a request to advertise for a public hearing for a sound variance to allow for amplified music at Ragged Island at 54 Bristol Ferry Road through the summer on various dates. Madam Clerk, are we looking at the 10th or
March
24th?
24th.
24th. We have a motion to hold a public hearing on the 24th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is a request to form a Portsmouth 250 committee or subcommittee of the Historical Society, or a committee thereof of other people who may want to join and be part of a 250th celebration, which is next summer on July 4th.
It is.
Good evening.
Good
You are
evening.
not Mr. Clark.
I am not, and I am actually not Miss Fogarty either from all of them. So I'm pinch hitting for Lauren tonight. Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Rob Rock. I'm the Deputy Secretary of State for Secretary of State Greg Amori, and here representing Secretary Amori, the Rhode Island 250 Commission, and Mr. Clark asked that we come today to talk about establishing potentially a local committee here in the town of Portsmouth. So next year, we are marking the 250th or the semi-quincentennial of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. You may remember back in 1976, the state did a really good job of commemorating the 200th anniversary, so we want to do the same thing in 2026. In 2021, the General Assembly established the Rhode Island 250 Commission. They put the Secretary of State as the chair of the commission, and there are 30 members made up of historians throughout the state, the historian laureate, members of the Rhode Island Historical Society, Newport Historical Society. And the commission is charged with encouraging civic pride, improving economic development, and sharing our state's history ahead of the 250th anniversary. Another duty of the commission is to go around and to try to work with local organizations to make 2026 something special. And we visited just about every town council. We visited the Portsmouth Town Council about a year ago with the previous council, and we're trying to get the cities and towns to establish local 250 commissions. And 26 states so far, so 2/3 of the state, have established a committee. And we think that the more committees that get established, the better that 2026 will be. And what the committees look like across the state vary. Some historical societies are the ones that are going to be handling the 250 duties. Some cities like my hometown of East Providence, they've established their own committee made up of East Providence residents just to make 2026 something special. And I just want to let you know that we're here to help at the state level. We are ready to assist. We're actually going to be bringing, as was mentioned before, the Portsmouth Compact down next week. The Secretary and the State Archivist are going to be speaking. It's one of his favorite events of the year. He's a historian, and so he loves that event. But we also stand ready to help in other ways. We can supplement any events that you have here in Portsmouth with documents and attending and speaking if that's what it takes. We also are going to provide every city and town with a Liberty tree. A Rhode Island red maple, we're going to provide the tree and a bronze plaque, and you're going to get to plant it wherever you'd like in the town to commemorate the 250th anniversary. And we also just received $1 million from the General Assembly. Now, that $1 million is going to be decided by the commission on what to do with it, but probably going to spend on a big event in 2026, whether it's a water fire or trying to bring the tall ships in. We're trying to work to bring those folks back. So we're here ready to help. So whatever the town, should you determine that you want to establish a committee, the State 250 Commission is ready to help in any way that we possibly can. And I know that Mr. Clark and the Historical Society, I think, would like to lead the way, but I'll let him speak on that. But certainly happy to answer any questions about the State Commission. And again, to reiterate that we're here and ready to help the town of Portsmouth if you so choose.
Well, thank you for coming in tonight.
My pleasure.
We do, I think, want to help celebrate our nation's birthday. We celebrated our own birthday 9-10 years ago, 12, that's right, 12 years ago now. Huh? Yeah, wow. We're a lot older than the state and the country. So, Mr. Clark, anything you want to say in terms of building the
Yes.
committee?
Craig Clark, 701 Park Ave. I'm the president of the Portsmouth Historical Society and a founding director of the Battle of Rhode Island Association. Last year, Rob came to the town council, presented what the state was going to do. And, every organization in the town struggles with volunteers. And at that point, the Historical Society struggles like everyone else in getting volunteers. Now, this is a large undertaking. So we've been sort of on the fence, how can we participate in the 250th, just due to our low staffing, so to speak. Middletown has formed a 250th commission, and they reached out to me. And what I like their approach. They started a commission, and the town council basically asked all different members of the community, the Middletown Library, the school system, the administration. And with that being said, I'm going to ask the town council to just kind of follow that lead, which is the Historical Society can lead the effort by using our 501(c)(3) umbrella if necessary. I want to avoid having to create a 375th committee that they did 12 years ago. So we have that established, and we have the infrastructure to support that. We already have the commitment from the Butts Hill Fort Restoration Committee. The Portsmouth Daughters of American Revolution want to get involved. I'm sure the Portsmouth Open Space Commission or the Conservation Commission would get involved. And we can't force the library to get involved or the school committee, but just to simply get a member of each of these departments on the same commission would help just communicate, educate, work on the same calendar. The Historical Society is going to help hold events regardless, obviously, but it would sure be easier to have someone from the school committee, part of the commission, to help with the homecoming parade. We've been trying to get some reenactors involved on homecoming, whatever's going on. We have quite a few things sort of in the works right now. So I was sort of debating with Mr. Rayner as far as what is it going to be? Is it a town committee or is it a separate commission? I'd rather not be participating in open meeting laws and rules and,
Not used the word debate. We were,
okay.
I don't want people to think you were.
Oh, no, we weren't debating, no. But I mean, I wasn't really sure what I was coming to ask, I guess is the question. So I guess the question is that the Historic Society is willing and able to form a committee or commission, and we're asking the town council to encourage other groups within the town to add a person to our commission or committee to support all the events in the 250th celebrations.
Thank you.
That's as simple as I can get it.
So the first thing I'll ask is does the town council want to start up a commission? I think the answer would be yes, but do we have a motion to start a 250th commission?
So moved. Oh, there we go.
You can say second.
I can say second.
Thank you.
Just for discussion.
Yes.
First off, for full disclosure, I am on the board of the Portsmouth Historical Society, so I am in favor of doing this. I did just caution the board that, town committee versus a Historical Society committee would involve the Rhode Island Secretary of State's office and somebody being a secretary in minutes, et cetera. So I don't know if that's really the way to go, and I just throw that out to the council. If we decide we want some type of, lack of better words, ad hoc committee tied in with the Historical Society rather than a parks, solid waste recycling or conservation committee type committee, you know what I mean? To avoid that headache, if you will. And it's just one more thing that Jen would have to be advertising for. I mean, my thoughts are that we, perhaps a resolution, and we ask for volunteers to come forward, for an independent committee. Open ideas.
Well, I'm just trying to debate whether or not if there's anything that is tacitly approved by or requested by this council, I believe would put us into the realm of Open Meetings Acts.
Okay,
So,
so we're there anyways.
I think so.
Okay.
But I don't see it being a huge deal in terms of maybe a dozen meetings or so over the course of the next 16 months.
So
in terms of-
then perhaps we just ask the town clerk to advertise for volunteers for a 250th committee.
And I would also ask, since Mr. Clark has asked the school committee member, that one of our council members volunteer for that committee as well, to be a liaison to that as well. Or two. You can't go more than three.
I will do that.
I can too, or Mary, whichever. Do you want to do it, Mary?
I certainly would be
You still got to turn the red one off.
in favor of it, but g- tell me again how Middletown did it?
We, we have a stronger historical society than Middletown, I believe. So they've sort of created a 250th commission,
Yeah,
but I'm not.
mission.
Commission,
Yeah.
yes, that's what they're calling it. It's not, I don't think it's under the town necessarily. I'm not 100% sure on that. But the town basically encouraged the commission and is requesting the administration of the town to get involved, school committee to get involved, library to get involved. So we can find that out, exactly what they did. But I'm not trying to overcomplicate it. What we're really trying to do here is just increase the communication. You know, we want to talk to the school committee. We need to talk to Public Works. We need to talk to the Parks and Recreation. It's not difficult to do that, obviously, as it is, but if someone was already part of that commission or committee, they would know what the plan is. We'd be working together on that. So I think that's probably what I'm looking for. That's the easiest way, is to keep it outside the town purview as a separate group. But I would love the town support and recruiting volunteers, because it's a short-term commission, we think.
If I'm not mistaken, our 375th committee didn't take notes and
They actually formed a committee. This idea here, what I'm hearing is they're asking essentially us to join this commission. So we would appoint, staff members as appropriate to be part of the commission with other like-minded individuals or organizations. It doesn't need to be a committee. And once you form a committee, we're subject to the Open Meetings Act. We got to have a quorum to make any decisions. Everything has to be advertised. This is just a group that's getting together to try to support the nation's effort to celebrate the 250th. I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Clark. I don't think we need to overcomplicate this.
what specific, I don't remember at this point in time, but what was the motion was to
Form a commission.
form a commission to support, how about we change it to support the forming of a commission? So that way we're not forming a commission, that might get us outside of to work on the 250th.
I would say since I made the motion, I will move to amend my motion.
Thank
to
you, sir.
that.
Okay, and, all right. All right.
So all I ask is that the town help
Exactly, all right.
in advertising for volunteers.
Don't forget the garden club.
No, of course not. No.
All right. All those in favor of supporting the setting up of a commission for the 250th anniversary of the country? All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Clark.
you very much.
The library will join. The library is here and they're in. Thank you, Ms. Bell.
I'm in. I want to join. A QR code?
All right, new business number 3 is just a request of a resolution. This is my item in terms of general revenue sharing. I have been in contact with almost every town council president and or mayor around the state trying to get support for this. Once we've passed this, which I hope we can pass this, I will make sure that they all get it and get it off to their state representatives. Portsmouth's share of this would be about $660,000 if passed the way it is written at this point in time. It's still mind-boggling that other cities and towns aren't jumping on it to try and get more money and less towards their taxpayers, but I will take on that burden to go after them.
Mr. President, motion to approve the resolution regarding the restoration of the general revenue sharing to cities and towns.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all. Okay, next up is a request of approval of resolution regarding support of Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns 2025 legislative priorities. The League of Cities and Towns sends out a list of priorities every year. I believe they sent it out in December of this year.
Yeah, I think it was January.
January?
They had
Oh.
promised to follow up with some hard copies to distribute to the council. That hasn't arrived yet, so I sent the link.
I got a hard copy at home. Did everybody else get one?
I thought
Maybe they mailed them to you. They
Yeah.
told us in an email that they were going to drop them off, so we put them in your boxes, but we didn't get them, so. If you
Yeah,
have them, that's
I
great.
got one in the mail.
Okay.
I thought I did
You
as
guys
well.
did, maybe they didn't get to the new council members at that point in time, but
Regardless, I did send the electronic link, and what the league is doing, they're asking every city and town council in Rhode Island to consider passing this draft resolution to show support for their legislative priorities, which were put together based on their discussions and input from across the state. And they do align with what was discussed during our legislative session with our state legislators.
As a general principle, League of Cities and Towns is trying to help out the cities and towns. A lot of their priorities are not necessarily our priorities. They are more priorities for inside the 295 Beltway. But there are some priorities in there that will help the town of Portsmouth. Mr. Reese.
One thing that I saw in there, looks like it gets rid of the 4% cap that we have in favor of low-income housing. In other words, if you get low-income housing, you don't have to meet the 4% cap.
But you have to get to 10% low-income housing. I think it's part of their.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
It looked to me like if you just commit to a certain amount. And that'll mean there'll be two classes of people in Portsmouth, the poor and the rich who support them. And the people who can least afford will be hurt the worst by higher taxes, the elderly and young families.
Having the ability to go over 4% and actually going over 4%.
They're coming close.
We don't have any state funding. But anyways, Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Thank you, Mr. President. Larry Fitzmaurice, 50 Kristen Court. Portsmouth Concerned Citizens is vehemently opposed to adoption of this resolution. I think I understand that we received this resolution from the league. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when you read the thing, you don't get anything that jumps out at you. When you read the article in the newspaper of last Friday by Catherine Gregg in the Projo, you will see that the actual legislative agenda of the league is dramatically different than what is stated in this resolution. Mr. Reese spoke to the fact that it eliminates the 4% tax cap. And the wording is that if you have affordable housing, if the community is welcoming to affordable housing, then you can get exempted from the application of the 4% tax cap. For those who don't follow these things well, that means that there's no limit on the amount of property taxes that this council can levy against its citizens. I believe that the executive director, Randy Rossi, has launched a direct attack on getting the tax cap law repealed. And this is the opening step. This is a very long stride. So I'd like to give you a little bit of history here. The revised tax cap law of 2006 was a result of the taxpayer groups in the state, and primarily it was the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council under Dr. Gary Sass and the Rhode Island Statewide Coalition under Harry Staley. Together, they got together and they agreed to push forward to modify the existing tax cap law. And the intent was to place a ballot measure on the election for the people to vote on a constitutional amendment. In other words, put this in the constitutional amendment. That didn't happen, but the Senate President, then Pavavid, Senator Pavavid from Newport, indicated she was willing to put it in as a state law. That's where it got done. It got adapted, and there was a period of lowering the cap for a couple of years, and then we got down to 4%. Actually, I think it was more in a couple of years.
4, 5, 6, I think.
We started out at 5.5 and we worked our ways down in increments each year. The Portsmouth Concerned Citizens was directly involved in drafting this proposal. It became law. So we feel very strongly about this. We understand what it does. We understand how it was made, and we understand its results. And its results have been powerful in this state. Now, we're still, according to the article written by Ms. Gregg, number 8 in the United States in property taxes. But we were higher then when we did this. We've dropped a couple of, probably 3 positions, although admittedly it's difficult to tell from the various studies where your state actually ranks. So this is very, very important to us. We consider this to be a fundamental issue for us. And we ask, and we will strongly ask that the council does not support this thing, because we're taking an opening move to begin the process of dismantling the 4% tax cap. That's what this will be if the league is successful in its efforts. Now, this was a surprise to me. I got the surprise last Friday. So I didn't have any inkling this was happening. But for years, I was on the team that watched to see if any elements in the state after 2006 would attempt to change the tax cap law. No attempt was ever made except for adopting for the removal of the property tax on automobiles from the tax code, which is a great thing. And so it was changed to adopt for that. So we don't know why the League of Cities and Towns is doing this. Apparently all 39 communities in the state, municipalities in the state, get a chance to vote on this. I'm not sure about that one way or the other, but apparently they do. And, but I will assure you that any political member of council or anyone else votes in favor of this resolution, and we will oppose you forever. This is so important to us. And there's no need to take money from us as taxpayers to fund the league when the league is attempting to do this to the taxpayers. Literally, we are taking our contribution to it. We're taking our contribution from the taxpayers, obviously, and we're using it to take away the structures that have protected them for the last few years against heavy taxes. Now, our taxes are too high in this town, but they are still limited by the 4% tax cap. So I ask for a no vote on this resolution. Thank you.
May I ask a clarifying
sure.
question?
Ms. Fitzmaurice?
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes, ma'am.
I think I might have misheard you incorrectly, and I'm just looking for clarification.
Yes.
Had you stated that the PCC had helped draft something along these lines?
Not along these lines. We helped draft the original, what became a law. It was supposed to be a
Oh, the
constitutional
original,
amendment.
Not this.
No.
No,
Original.
not
Help-
the
help draft
resolution.
Original. Okay, that's
Sorry
that's
for
the part that I was like,
No, we wouldn't do that.
okay.
Although the resolution's fairly benign.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Any discussion from council? Ms. McDowell?
Yeah, originally, when I did look at the resolution, it was, in my opinion, very benign and something that I felt, that I could support. However, when I received later on the backup information or the report itself that the resolution was based on, it did bring me to pause. And I will say, Mr. Fitzmaurice, I too had the the same feeling as you in terms of that. The thing that scared me the most was the 4% possibility of exceeding that 4%. And the other thing, as Mr. Hamilton said, while I read it, there wasn't, to me, a lot of relevance to Portsmouth. So, based on that and based on the idea that I'm really nervous about that 4%, I'm not sure I'm not going to support the resolution. Not that it doesn't have some very good things in it, but
But we could change the resolution and you could say we support everything else except for said item, if you wanted to,
well,
with the exception of legislative priority, any legislative priority that moves to remove the 4% tax cap. Mr. Fitzmaurice.
Mr. President, I understand what you're trying to do, but I consider the threat here to be very large, and the gain from making an agreement that we'll just take one of them out is unlikely to be visible at the other end. If you read through the documents from the website for the league, you will see that they intend to submit all of these to the assembly and request these laws supporting it. And there's a number of other things that we would object to as well, but time is of the essence here. And so once you just send this in, they're just going to count it as, yes, they got permission from Portsmouth to do this. You have to say no, or they're going to take it on as a yes.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Any motions from the council? Hearing none, we shall move on to new business number 5. Which are civic support requests. Which number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 requests this year.
Mr. President.
18, did I miss one?
The Portsmouth Prevention Coalition puts in a request, but our recommendation in this next budget will be to continue to fund
Fund it
the
out of-
opioid settlement.
Okay. Mr. Reese.
Okay, I have an opinion on this. These are requests to commit the citizens to spend funds that we don't even know we have available. This list of requests approaches almost $1 million. All civic support requests should be presented after the residents' basic needs in the present budget are met. The roads, police, fire, DPW, infrastructure maintenance all come ahead of the giveaways. Committing to spending now will reduce the amount to supply the basic needs in the budget. This increases the burdensome tax rate. I make a motion to table this till later in the budget season.
This civic support helps define the basis of where we go forward. Some of these are necessary, including the public library, which allows them to figure out where their budget's going to go. Library is pass-through money. That's the biggest number in this budget. I don't have any problem cutting some of these items. There's a few on there that I don't think need to be on there,
Well,
period.
there was also like almost 400 pages of backup
Mhm.
that we were trying to go through. I mean,
I-
I'm not talking to delay it forever. We're going to do it. It's just that I don't want to do it now. I think
So-
we should see more of how the budget is developed. We haven't really seen anything yet.
Okay.
And I think it just give us more time. This is a big thing. This is almost $1 million.
There's $750,000 that's already cash in the budget from last year for all of these items. So you're looking at a $53,000 increase over last year. You can go through this budget right now and cut everything but the library if you wanted to. And the Prudence Island School
Well, that's
Foundation.
what they used to do is only the library and the senior center.
Yeah,
One
and
time.
before
was-
that, we used to do Little League, soccer, football, baseball, hockey, everything under the sun until 2009 hit and we lost a lot of money in state funding. a lot of these items are civic support type items where organizations are doing work that us as a town don't do in terms of the food bank.
I'm not saying not support him. I'm just looking for more time.
I think giving direction to the administrator as he's building his budget as to how much, if any of this is going to be in there, makes it easier for him to build a budget going forward. If we come back, if we were to say tonight, level fund everything, God bless you. If we were to come back and say level fund everything at the 74,931, I wouldn't say that because the library still needs their 15,716. I can see Mr. Mello staring at me right now. But if we were to give direction, it would free up the administration to be able to build a better budget. That's why we do it in this process. If the council doesn't have an appetite for any of this, we can,
Well, then I make a motion that we approve everything at the FY '25.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Except for the library. Right, because that's a state mandated thing.
Is that part of your motion?
What is the
Yeah.
motion?
To level fund everything at FY '25 except the library.
I would make a second to the motion. And, you know, this would give Mr. Rayner some direction to go. It doesn't mean we can't change these
Right,
down
we
the
can
road.
fine tune all this
but-
later, yeah.
It level funds things. It gives the extra money to the library and allows us to move forward.
Counselor Reese, does that mean include the 15,000 for the
For the
Library.
library.
For the extra money for the library, yeah, just the library.
so,
Because it can be adjusted later. I mean, the budget's not really out. And then we've given Mr. Reyes some numbers to work with. He's got a foundation to build on. We can change that from where we are now. They're not that far off.
Got 763, 647.
I got 764, 647, but I typed something differently.
Good thing we're
Yeah,
not
I
playing,
had
good
a
thing we're not
sneaky
playing cards.
I got 764, 647.
Mr. President?
Ms. Dow.
So, what I think I'm hearing is that we would look at the requested FY '26 and, or no.
No.
The FY
25.
'25,
And just
except
add,
for the library.
correct.
Correct.
Level fund that. So that means, for instance, like the second one on there, Aquidneck Island Planning, we
Would-
would not have anything there.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay?
Until
Correct.
we
And,
come back.
Correct.
Unless we come back. And, okay, I mean, I just wanted a little bit of information. I read all the backup on some of these, but I guess
There are individuals here, if you have a specific, they came out tonight specifically to hear this. If there is a question you have on one of these items, please ask it now.
Yep.
So that we can potentially avoid them having to come back tonight. I mean, I think the food pantry is relatively self-explanatory for everybody. St. John's Lodge, they have they're open 2 days a week and feed 250 families a month, roughly.
Okay, but we could come back
Mhm.
Yeah.
and increase that, correct? After,
Yeah.
You could come
you
back
can.
in May and say, you know what? I found an extra $5,000 in the budget and I want to give it to them. Yes, you could.
Yeah.
But you'd have to find that $5,000.
But exactly, Mr. President, because you're just echoing the statement I was going to say, that if we go ahead, my recommendation would be to go ahead as presented, because it is much harder, just like Mr. President just said, to come back and say, hey, we want to give $3,000 to EBCAP. If we tell the administrator today to level fund everything for the exception of the library, he's going to use that cap for something else. It doesn't mean that we're going to fund this first and then we're going to find this cap here. It's no, now I have this pot of money that I can go ahead and invest elsewhere. So it's not that, hey, we're going to have this stopgap here so that we can come back to this fund here. He's going to come back and say, no, you guys didn't approve this. We're going to go ahead and fund this instead. It's like budgeting 101.
And just for rough numbers, taking the $36,000 roughly out is about a penny on the tax rate. So,
All right, well,
just so you
there
know. how much it
there
is.
are some things that are questionable, like the AIPC. There was some problems with funding on that. We couldn't
I
get
don't
their
have a
books. There
problem
was
with your motion.
There was a whole lot of things there.
I'm just, I don't have a problem with your motion.
The large ticket items are, the next largest ticket items are the planning commission and the visiting nursing home and hospice. Both of those are new items. Can we hear more about those? Because those sound important.
Right, but aren't those covered by Blue Cross and medical plans? I mean, that's a,
Well, visiting nurses, well, moved out of Portsmouth.
yeah, I was gonna say, they're gone anyway.
And
They're
and the
not,
planning commission was
they're not here.
was given a direction from the council to wind itself down last year, and it hasn't. It hasn't been
Right.
supported for the past few years.
So those two we were gonna take out, I believe, anyway, right? Possibly.
I'm just here to facilitate discussion.
I think we should just start at the top and
Well, we have a motion
I
on the
mean,
table, so
Yeah.
we can either vote on the motion, or we can remove the motion and go line by line.
I say we vote on the motion.
Yeah, if we go with a motion, we've got most of it there anyway. You can always come back and add.
So the motion on the table is to level fund all items at
FY
FY
25.
25, except for the library, which will be increasing by $15,716, which makes the new bottom line for FY 26 to the administration to be $764,647. I
Okay.
got a nod from our finance director, so I feel better now.
Yeah,
District out.
I just have a question regarding the senior center. Now, the senior center is going to be incorporated into the new development, correct? Does that impact anything? I looked at, I mean, does it?
No, I
Okay.
think, well, they get a nice new mold-free,
No, I know, but
stink-free house.
what I'm,
Functioning now.
Yes, with the
I mean, so
$84,000.
they'll be functioning until they move in, which we
Correct.
don't know when they move in, Mary, we can change that.
So by the time they
just-
move into the new facility, they'll basically have a half a year,
yeah.
give or take, maybe 9 months until the next fiscal year. So if it were to come about that in December, January of this year, that's when they'll have to decide whether or not they need some extra funding from us to support themselves for the following year.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the Prudence Island School Foundation, that school is still
Yeah.
operating.
Half a dozen kids or so?
No,
Well,
it's,
I
No
think there's
kids?
no kids this year.
it's,
No?
we're, by council vote, we are not funding the school. It's called the School Foundation. And when they do have students, they don't have students there right now. They'll school their children in that building. What the council voted was to support the school's foundation effort to maintain the building. That's what this money is supposed to be used for,
And
to maintain the historic one-room schoolhouse on Prudence Island.
can I ask Mr. Rayner, who oversees that?
The
Fund.
Prudence, well, it goes to, there's a foundation there that oversees this, so I don't know if Kathleen Holman is here.
I don't know if she's online.
So it's the Prudence Island School Foundation, I think is what they're called. Actually,
It
it's in the
is, yeah.
binder.
Okay.
And I did read their backup. It's just it got you were given the impression that it was, still being used for something, and I didn't think it was, so. So this is just to maintain the building.
Maintains the building and it supports their effort to school kids there if they choose to stay on the island to receive schooling. But that's not our purview. We don't operate a school there. They're not part of RIDE. Our interest is the historic building. That's our interest.
Notes, but I don't know where they are.
Well, you find your notes and I'll let Mr. Johnson speak for a quick second.
Okay.
welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. President. I still live at 44 Wapping Road. Motion on the floor is to approve the budget at the 25 level with the exceptions that you have discussed. That creates a problem for the Aquidneck Island Planning Commission, and hence I am back at the podium for why I came here tonight. I'm here with Hugo Diacentes, who is our vice chair. The Planning Commission is not the same Planning Commission that was here last year or the year before. Indeed, it is not the same Planning Commission that over the last half dozen years has generated the ire of some people in the room who have desired to put it out of business for reasons that are important to them, but for other reasons we believe would be detrimental to the island community. What I wish to do is to supplement the information that is in our budget request so that you have a better understanding of what it is that we plan to do with the precious dollars that Mr. Reese and the others of you have talked about that would be used and how they would be used, because they would be an expense, of course, but an investment in the future of Portsmouth, an investment in the future of Aquidneck Island. As you know, we've been around for 40 years, and as we enter our 41st year of service to the island, we respectfully request funding for 3 primary projects. The first is Island Water's follow-on activities. We wish to enhance the completed Island Waters projects to help Portsmouth and the other communities on the island to protect the drinking water by arranging for maintenance of the sites that have already been completed, including by developing 20-year maintenance documentation and including educational content and on-site signage explaining the importance of these projects to protect the island's drinking water supply. But there's an additional component, which is the bigger dollar piece of it, and that is to complete the required audit of the work. We exceeded the dollar threshold, and because we were not funded last year by Portsmouth or Middletown, we don't have the money to complete the work that we have contracted with the auditor to do that. That can become a problem for the 3 municipalities. The second thing is an Aquidneck Island residents' priority surveys. What do we know from our residents about their priorities? Each and every one of you in your separate ways over the last several meetings have talked about hearing from our residents. And what is it that we really know? What are the issues that are most important to them? Is there a consensus around how Portsmouth, how Newport's, how Middletown's limited resources might best be used? AIPC will work with a qualified research firm to conduct this outreach through online questionnaires, written surveys, and focus groups to obtain actionable, solid information to each community broken down by community and island-wide, and the results will serve as one framework directing AIPC's future service. Hugo will talk more about how we see one likely outcome from the second of the 3 primary projects. The third is an AIPC online research library. We have done a lot of studies. This is a 238-page study from 2012. It's the transportation study. It's a masterwork. It should be guiding the island on what it is that would solve some of the issues around East Main Road, West Main Road, how Burma Road can be used. It isn't what I would do, or what you 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 would do, but it is a well-researched document that the community can look at, that we can use with RIDOT, that we can use with the state and federal funding authorities to be able to gain that money that will help us to move forward. And the works that we have done are not readily available. Some of it is not yet digitized. And our website is not accessible to the public in the way it should be. It's not accessible to some of the people that need to work with that. So the third of the three items is an online research library, which will allow us to make these materials readily available to the public, where we will collect, digitize where necessary, catalog, and organize in a reimagined, robust, easy-to-navigate website for the benefit of all. The requested funding will allow AIPC to continue to serve as the honest broker to the Aquatic Island communities and to their municipal leaderships. Hugo? Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for considering Aquatic Island Planning Commission. What I'm going to do is just briefly introduce myself, how I developed my overall understanding of Aquatic Island, and you'll see. And then also I'm going to just focus a little bit about what Steve had already talked about this survey. I think it's critically important. And I will say at the outset that level funding assumes that everything is static from the previous year. Nothing has changed. Your operation has changed. There are no changes. Level funding is appropriate. But in some cases, things do change, and I think it's a lot of work, but you have to look at each individual operation. If level funding is going to work for them, that's fine. I'm not sure it's going to work for Aquatic Island Planning Commission. First of all, let me explain.
Can you state your name and address?
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. Hugo Diacenis. I live at 388 Broadway, Newport, Rhode Island. I'm sorry about that. And I'm a very new member of the Aquatic Island Planning Commission. I attended a few meetings, but I literally got appointed February 12th, 2025. I'm new. Okay. So, and I want to give you my background. I'm born and raised in Newport. I kind of was on the Newport-Middletown line. I hung out in Newport. I hung out in Middletown. I knew some people in Middletown, knew people in Newport. When I went to high school, there was a guy in the vocational. I knew him. He was on Jepson Lane in Portsmouth. His father was a potato farmer, kind of hung out then. But basically in Newport, born and raised in Newport. But then what happened is I got a job with the Newport Water Department, and that gave me my Aquatic Island view. And Newport Water Department, as most people know, is kind of a regional operation, but it really operates over Newport, Middletown, and Portsmouth. The watershed, as most people know, almost no watershed is in the city of Newport. It's in Middletown, it's in Portsmouth. So in my travels, what I did in my daily work, I was in Newport, Middletown, and Portsmouth. I know a great deal about the water system. I know all about the watershed, the treatment processes, the water quality, the drinking water regulations, the distribution systems. I know a great deal about Newport operations. I know some about how Portsmouth Water operates, the Navy, a little bit how they operate, and even Prudence Island. And actually, to take this a little bit step further, Newport also operates in Tiverton and Little Compton. So here I am working in I worked in Newport for over 30 years. And in my daily work, I didn't have boundaries. There was no Newport, Middletown, and Portsmouth. To me, I had, it's the watershed. I got to go and check out Maidford River. I got to check out Bailey's Brook, but there was no dividing line. So to me, I've always had this idea of Aquatic Island as kind of one cohesive operation, but that was from my daily work. The one thing I wanted to come back to is, I'm new on the Aquatic Island Planning Commission. My perception is there are lots of other members that are relatively new as well. We seem to be very dedicated, lots of energy. We want to move forward. We're presenting equal presentations to all three island communities for funding. But one of the things I wanted to come back to is, as Steve had already mentioned, is this idea of this Aquatic Island Resident Survey. I don't think it's ever been done before. And, what kind of things do we want to gather? Do we want to know, what brought people to Aquatic Island? What do they like about it? What brought, we all have different stories of how, I was born and raised in Newport. That's how I ended up here. But what brings you to Aquatic Island? What, keeps you on Aquatic Island? And what's your vision for the future? So I think that's a powerful document. And I believe that document, I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be enlightening, but I think that's going to be a document that's going to guide the Aquatic Island Planning Commission. And it may guide it for years to come. It needs to be done properly. And for that reason, I think it needs to be properly funded. I don't think we can cheap out on that document at all. So to me, that's a key, that resident survey. And that's something that's new, wasn't done last year. So you can't, level fund. We didn't do the survey. So if we level fund from what we did last year, this is a brand new project. But I just wanted to put that out there. I believe a Quinnic Island Planning Commission it's good to coordinate across the Quinnic Island, but it does serve all three communities, Newport, Middletown, and Portsmouth. So again, I'm new. I'm happy to answer any questions from any council person at any time. Give me a call. But in my case, I'm so new, I might have to do some research, but I'll get an answer. And I don't have a history with the Quinnic Island Planning. I can't talk about the past. I can only talk about moving forward. And all the members I see, they're active, they're energetic, and they all want to move forward. Again, thank you for your attention on this. And this is very important. I think this is key to the future of a Quinnic Island Planning Commission. And again, the Quinnic Island Planning Commission is going to serve and coordinate all of the Quinnic Island.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Gleason.
Mr. DeSantis and Mr. Johnson, are either of you grant writers? Because my suggestion is that if you feel that your heart is in this project, that you need to start writing grants.
Correct.
And I think what you've heard from the council in the past is, and other planners for the different towns, is that AIPC has kind of run its course. And while I appreciate your enthusiasm, I don't think there's any money in this budget for you, the same as last year. And I'd rather be upfront with you and state that. But I think you need to find another funding source.
Vice President Gleason, we could not agree with you more. The request that we have is that one of you will offer to amend the motion on the floor to level fund, as we have been for more than 2 decades, at 18,000, rather than where we were in FY25 in the year before. That is what we want to get back to, so that we can do exactly what you are talking about. Allow me to share with you another nonprofit, a major nonprofit on the island where I serve on the board of directors. 6 years ago, that group was in deep trouble. They did not have money for an executive director. They hired an executive director that was not ideal. That executive director did what you described to me last Wednesday night for AIPC, ×2, just as AIPC did, ×2. We were able to secure a 6-figure grant for a national search firm and to supplement the salary for the first 2 years of an executive director. And Newport Classical hired a crackerjack person away from Dallas Symphony. And now the McBean Charitable Foundation has described Newport Classical from a governance point of view as going from worst to best, because we had the funding from a foundation, because we survived as a 47 or 8-year-old organization at that point, it was 46-year-old organization at that point, to get through the valley, to come back up from having written the grant, to be able to get the funding to hire the executive director. As I've discussed with Council President a couple of times, actually he's discussed with me, without a great executive director, you guys will never be successful. When you've had good EDs in the past, you have been extremely beneficial to the island. When you haven't had good EDs, or more recently, when you have not had an executive director at all, you have been, your phrase was, a rudderless ship. Can't take issue with that. When you don't have that kind of internal leadership, that kind of ability to then go out and do the additional development, once you have the grant to be able to get that person in the first place, that's what is necessary. If we survive long enough to be able to do that, which some people in the room will come to this podium behind me and say we shouldn't because for whatever reasons are important to them, fair enough. We should survive, and we have the ability to survive long enough to be able to write those grants, and we will. Is that responsive to your question?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
The 3 items that you state
Yes.
on there all should have been, well, within the survey, which is a new initiative. The island waters should have been supported underneath the island waters. A 20-year plan of maintenance signs and everything else should have come out of that grant and didn't.
As we have discussed, Mr. Hamilton, I agree. We had funding from the Van Buren Foundation for a educational outreach budget to do that. We returned the funding to the Van Buren Foundation because of a misunderstanding. We did not use that about $7,000 that we didn't realize was available to us. That was a very unfortunate occurrence a couple of 2.5 years ago. It is very unfortunate that we are now asking for either going back to Van Buren for additional dollars or asking for taxpayer dollars to be able to do what should have been done in the first place. I agree.
We have had testimony from our planner. I've had communications from the other planners and other council members from other cities and from Newport and Middletown that there is no funding. I can't see spending $18,000 on a Quinnipiac Island Planning Commission again. And I told you this last Wednesday night that I am not in favor of $18,000 for Quinnipiac Island Planning Commission because every time we've asked for something, even prior to you, it hasn't happened. So giving $18,000 again is just a mistake. And you can say as much as you want. You're not going to change my mind, but go ahead.
So where does 18,000 come from? It comes from the level funding because that's the convenient thing. And what Hugo has talked to me about is that's the convenient thing. And that is what we are discussing in the city of Newport. That is what I have discussed with the mayor, your counterpart, the city council president there. I have no reason to believe that that will not be a successful application in the city of Newport at that level. That said, we can do the old 80-20 rule. We can do for half of this budget that we are requesting, we can do 80% of this work or whatever the numbers are. Don't ask me to do that standing here this time of night in my head. But to be zeroed out would be unfortunate.
But you're not being zeroed out. You're just not being given $18,000 that you haven't been given in the past 2 years or 3 years at this point.
So I have been coached about the ability to come back and to come back and to come back all the way through May. What I would respectfully request is that we have something, as you noted, as a placeholder for our town administrator and for our finance director as a placeholder for those future budget discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. You've been waiting very patiently in the back. No, it's your turn. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Donna Matthews, 35 Athena Terrace, and I'm here representing the Quidnick Food Pantry. I am the secretary on the board of directors. Just want to update a little bit of what was in the application package. Just the end of the year numbers for how many people we fed in 2024 was first 5,932 families. Now, they're not unique families. We have families that come back every week, but if you're going to look at how many families it was 5,932. And that represented 17,364 people. So we had changed our name this year to a Quidnick Food Pantry to more represent who we actually serve, and it's a Quidnick, people from a Quidnick Island and Tiverton and in our local area. So we are very grateful for anything you give us. We are so lucky that we have an incredible community that has supported us monetarily and with food. We're just incredibly, incredibly lucky. I want to say a little bit, we are an all volunteer organization. I didn't really put specifics in there in the application of what that actually means, but I'm going to say we have 35 regular volunteers, I'm going to say, who come and do all kinds of, come and do the regular work on the 2 days a week, passing out food. But we also have a bunch of us who run around and pick up the food that has to come to the pantry. So 35 regular volunteers. We also have high school students that come and regularly ask us to volunteer so they can, mostly National Honor Society, so they can get their community service hours. We also have volunteers who come from the Maha Center. They do occupational therapy. They come and so we help them out. I'm very proud of where we've come in the past few years, grown as an organization and been able to help the community and also Maha Center and high school students. We're very lucky. So anyway, that's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Allison Novick, 278 Reservoir Road in Middletown. I am here, Mr. President and members of the council, representing the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center. And I want to thank you for funding us in years past. And I would like to share a little bit why I hope you will consider our request again this year at the fiscal year 26, if you can. We are grateful, as Donna said so well, for whatever you can provide to us. We have seen a 33% increase in the number of Portsmouth residents that are relying on the Martin Luther King Center. Our grant is in, or our civic support request is for our hunger relief programs. Our mobile food pantry is coming to Portsmouth, whatever the weather. It's coming to Quaker Estates. It's going to Anthony House. We are delivering food also to homebound seniors who are unable to get to the pantry. Those are some of the most vulnerable people that we're seeing. We are offering fresh vegetables every week that anyone can come to the center and get them. We have an on-site pantry that people are coming to. We have nutritional education, cooking classes. Because of this funding, it has enabled us to do other things like open the county's only overnight warming center, where we're dealing with unhoused people, yes, but we have seen people that have identified themselves to us and told us that they have been usually staying outside in the Portsmouth area. We've seen over 90 unique people. The food service that we've seen for Portsmouth has been over 2,000 individual instances of services, so that's not duplications. And beyond hunger, we have done things like how we intersect with Portsmouth residents is the Imagination Library and Santa's Workshop, where people come and choose toys for their children. And we're opening a new Wonder Lab, which is a free kids sensory exploration program for very young children. So I just wanted to share a little bit. I know this has been a long evening, but thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Okay. So the current motion on the floor is to level fund everything except for the library. And that would be, the full civic support would be $764,647.
I found my,
You found your notes? You have
my
adjustment you want to make?
I want to ask a question about it. Yeah.
Sure.
So the Prudence Island School Foundation, the financial statements that we got from them, I mean, we did get a balance sheet from 2024, but the financial statements are only for 20 and 21, right? And why would that be?
We can reach out to them and ask. I mean, that's what they said.
Yeah, they only sent that. I thought it was strange that they didn't send the other. And then when you look in their backup, when you go down, let's see what page, it's on a balance sheet. For 2024, it has.
No, I'm just going to say, just give that number, page 285
285.
of the
okay.
PDFs.
All right, thank you.
Just makes it easier to find.
And you see under general and administrative expenses, like maintenance, and you see where it says year-to-date actual 0, and then full year budget 58. Like if it's used for maintenance and upkeep, why would that be 0? And then, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
That's weird. I mean, it just doesn't, this doesn't make sense to me. given what I looked at financially.
I'll reach out. I don't know what their year-to-date is.
Okay.
For instance, our year-to-date would always be July 1st through December 31st.
Yeah.
So I'll clarify with them what their year-to-date is.
And could you see if they have financial statements as well, more updated?
I'll do that.
Great. Thank you very much.
That the only one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you okay with leaving it level
I think I'd
funded
rather
or take
wait,
it out?
take that out and wait for the correct backup.
So-
That's what I think I would like to do.
So then we would
Well,
take
you-
the 60.
You could leave it in and then take it out in the future and reallocate it to something else. So if you,
I think I'd prefer to like take it out and let them give us the backup. I mean, they should have done that in the first place.
if you take it out now, the administrator will go forward with the $700,000. And you won't be able to put it back in if you need it later. If you
can't
keep
put
it
a
in,
placeholder there?
that is a placeholder.
that's
That-
what
that-
the
That's,
placeholder
that's,
is.
that's,
Can't
that's the
put a-
definition of a placeholder.
It's easier to take out than put back in.
If you,
So-
if you leave it there and you decide that you want to plus up the
You can use
pantry
it
and
elsewhere.
MLK, you can do that with that money later.
Okay.
If you decide that, hey, we really need that extra police car, which doesn't even get a full police car nowadays. With that $60,000, you could do that as well.
Can
And if I
Mr.
could-
President, can we move money from one to another? Like, take the wildlife rehabilitators and give that to the St. John's Food Bank, just it's the last item to the first item?
You could, if you wanted to zero fund of wildlife and give it to the food bank, you could do that. You
I
can make
would
a
do
motion,
that.
but you would have to, you'd have to get a second, a motion. You'd have to amend your first motion.
Okay.
Before you do that, Mr. Payero.
No, I just want to go back to the Prudence Island School Foundation, and if I maybe have to be corrected. But from the time on the school committee, it is the obligation of the town to be able to provide that, because that was part of the agreement of letting go of the school as part of the department, while this town still maintained maintenance of the grounds. While moving the operations, the educational operations to the foundation. I get
Yeah.
your points. I
Yeah,
like
no.
wholeheartedly agree with you on the
Yeah, it
information.
just seemed a little weird.
I was just, it's more for context of as
Yeah.
to like why we.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Currently, we still have a motion. Ms. Mike? Yes. Yep. No?
Yes,
Question?
no.
Oh,
I would like to amend the motion
okay.
currently.
And your
stated
amendment
by-
is?
To add the Martin Luther King Jr., the 920 to level fund as is 2025, include
So you want to give them their
the
request from?
library and the 920 addition.
Gonna make me do more math. That's what you're saying.
Add 920.
She wants to provide MLK with the $5,000 that they've requested, rather than the $4,080 that they received last year.
So that would be the library and
Yes, the
MLK.
library and, yes.
I would second that.
Which would then make the bottom line $765,567.
All right. Can I amend my motion?
Hang on.
We're gonna,
wait.
this is fun.
Wait,
this is-
wait. So you did second. Okay. Now you're gonna make a motion to,
Defund the wildlife rehabilitators and give that money to the St. John's Food Bank or the Quinnick Food Pantry.
okay, which would
It's,
make,
it's an even amount. It just takes the 1,000 from that and gives it to that.
correct, which would make their grant would be 4,600 instead of
4,600,
the
so that's
5,000
closer.
requested. Okay, is there a second for that?
Can I second his as well?
Yes,
So I second.
okay. I have to make sure I have all my
So,
notes in place.
Which one are we going to discuss first, from the back board?
Well,
Mr. Reese's motion?
You will start with Mr. Reese's
Okay.
motion, yes.
My only concern is that I personally would just like to, if we're going to do the same for Martin Luther King, it's just to grant the Quinnick Food Pantry their request for.
I
fiscal
just
year
moved I just
26.
moved it up.
Yes, but you took it out of the wildlife rehabilitators, which I prefer not to do.
I'd rather feed people than mice.
Well, if you look at
I mean,
the,
I'm gonna
I
get,
have my priorities.
I'm gonna give you a little advice on saying something like that. It bit me in the butt last year. Because as soon as I said that and we passed the budget, there were bunnies in my backyard that the dog was getting that I brought to the wildlife.
Well,
guy.
if you've got animals on a
There-
farm, they're a constant battles.
I just want to say, if you look at the numbers of how many people from Portsmouth have brought bunnies, chickens, the other day on East Main Road, I saw somebody trying to wrestle a red-tailed hawk off the side of the road. And I was like, should I stop and help this guy? You know, I don't even have a phone number for these people, but there are people that provide that service. And we've already cut his number down to the bone. So I personally would not support your motion, only because I don't want to take that money out. But I would support, giving more money to the food pantry.
I
You're like-
agree with that.
Okay, so is that a motion to provide the food pantry with the full $5,000 that they're asking for?
Yes, it is.
And there was a second from Mrs. Blank.
Second.
Okay. So we're gonna take these in reverse order here. So our first amendment to the main motion is Mr. Gleason's fully funding the Aquinic Island Food Pantry at $5,000.
That's correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That motion, I think, makes Mr. Reese's motion moot at this point
Yes,
in
it
time.
does.
Okay? So I would ask you to withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you, sir. Then we're going to go to Ms. Blank's motion to to fund the Martin Luther King Jr. Center at their full $5,000.
Yes.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I gotta do my math again. So we're adding $1,400 to 765, 567. Okay, which makes the new bottom line 766,967. Am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, the main motion as amended, which will now include full funding.
920?
Yes.
Okay.
Which fully funds the Aquidneck Island Food Pantry request of $5,000, fully funds the Martin Luther King Center's request of $5,000, funds the library's full request of $15,716, keeps the wildlife rehab at $1,000, and then level funds all other items.
I think you just need to go back. It's, the library we're funding at 587,226.
Well,
That's just
their-
an
yeah,
increase.
their-
Yes,
their increase was
is
15, yes,
15,716.
Yes. Funding their full increase.
Correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Now we move on to new business number 6, which is a request to advertise for a public hearing for a Tier 2 zoning and land use updates. Madam Clerk, what
March
date?
24th.
March
Oh.
24th as well. In discussions
Sorry.
with the town planner, these are not as in-depth, so we originally thought about doing a separate date for these items, but they're not as in-depth, so we can do it in a regular council meeting.
Can I, do we get backup
Yes.
before? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Madam Planner, do you have backup now? Or how soon can you have backup? It's coming? Okay. Can you get it to us prior to the normal agenda layout? Thank you.
Mr. President, motion to approve the advertising for the public hearing for the Tier 2 zoning and land use updates.
Second.
To be held on.
Be held on March
24th.
24th.
Thank you.
And second.
Mr. President, we will get the backup so we can.
She was going to
review
get it to us as soon as she earthly can.
Okay.
Okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Look at you.
Motion passes 7-0. Correspondence, we have a resolution in support of full funding of categorical transportation aid as outlined in Rhode Island General Law 16.7.2-6 from the Exeter Town Council.
Motion to place, to receive and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Future meetings, we have March 10th here, March 24th and March 14th. And then our first budget hearing meeting will be on the 28th, 29th and 30th and the 31st, the first if needed. Is that correct?
Wait.
The 28th is the It's
regular
the
council meeting.
regular council meeting with preview, and then it's the 29th, 30th, 31st as needed.
First, 30 days in, no, April.
Oh, they'll tell us.
Yeah. Okay.
First of May.
January, February, March.
I was doing the song in my head. April's only got 30 days. That's why I said the first.
Knuckles, Keith, knuckles.
Just spit out.
Just before we adjourn, I just have a question for Mr. Grieve. Were you given your answers to the last meeting? Did you get your answers and were you satisfied with them? From the audit questions?
Tom Grieve, 110 Third Drive. No, I have not gotten my answers yet.
You didn't get any answer?
None.
I am still working with the auditor on getting those answers.
Does not
Yes.
surprise me.
Perfect, thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Good night, everybody. See you all, believe it or not, in March.
We should have had some lights. Hey, pick the lights up and flash lights and we win.